So, with close season officially upon us now, it's just kind of setting in. Obviously, after this season, it's been a little bit messy. Obviously, we've still had quite a bit of fun, or at least I personally have. I feel like Merlin and a lot of the theme parks around the UK have done a great job at obviously reopening. However, obviously now begs the question, what is coming for 2021? Obviously, a lot of the parks, especially in Merlin's division, have obviously announced their various plans that are going to be kind of rolling out within 2021. However, obviously Thorpe Park and pretty much Alton Towers are very, very different, obviously, because both these parks announced, obviously, attractions that are meant to be opening the beginning of this year. However, obviously, with the delay of the 2020 season, that's kind of been shifted over to next year. So there's a lot of stuff that we know about the 2021 season at both Thorpe Park and Alton Towers that obviously we probably wouldn't already know unless these delays were obviously a thing. So I thought I'd take the time, obviously since it being the start of closed season, to go through everything we know about the 2021 season at Thorpe Park Resort so far. Obviously we don't know everything, but we know a good chunk of stuff, and I'm also going to be speculating a little bit within this video as well. So if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Obviously we've been doing a lot of great stuff recently, especially you guys. The support on the channel has been absolutely phenomenal. We're almost at, I think we're at 809 subs at the moment, so we're absolutely smashing it. We're getting further than I ever thought. So thank you so much to everyone who has obviously helped and subscribed in the past. I'm not going to dwindle on that. I'm not going to be one of those guys, and let's get right into the video. Okay then, so starting off with a little bit more of an obvious thing. Obviously the big thing Thorpe Park were originally going to be opening in spring this year is obviously Black Mirror Labyrinth. Now obviously we got quite a bit of information prior to its supposed release towards the beginning of this year. Obviously we know that it's going to be an indoor attraction and that it will replace Living Nightmare, or at least it will be featured within the space that Living Nightmare was previously featured in, which had pretty much housed most of the kind of iconic horror mazes throughout the years. Obviously you had Cabin in the Woods in there. It was a really iconic space. And I'm very excited to see it utilised properly throughout the whole season, rather than just being specifically for that kind of period of time. Obviously this is part of the X, or the old X extension queue line, obviously that they kind of transformed into this kind of attraction space, and it has worked very, very well in the past. It's a really good space, nice and compact, and obviously they decided to put Black Mirror Labyrinth in here. In terms of the actual content we'll be seeing within Black Mirror, we can kind of gather an idea from what's been said on various obviously websites, kind of hints that Thorpe Park have been given. Obviously the main hint is in the name. It is a labyrinth. Obviously they can't necessarily kind of label it as a maze, because obviously a lot of the Fright Nights mazes aren't necessarily actually mazes. You have certain mazes that obviously you can choose your path through, which are obviously some of the most successful mazes out there. However, this isn't what that is. There's going to be a lot of confusion within here by the looks of things. They labelled on the website there's going to be cutting edge technology within here, projection mapping maybe, interactiveness. There could be like interactive screens in there to kind of create different paths. To the extent of how deep this will go, we do not know, but the space within the Living Nightmare building is a very, very good one. There's a lot of opportunity in there to have multiple paths, to kind of have dead ends and things. And obviously it's kind of a shame, because the main reason they probably didn't open this attraction was because of that factor. Throughput isn't necessarily going to be that quick, meaning obviously in the situation we've got at the moment with Corona, it's not exactly ideal, especially if they're going to have interactive stuff in there as well. Smoke effects definitely will be in there, a lot of LED lighting effects, and it just sounds cool from what we've seen. Obviously we've only seen a little glimpse into what the interior could look like through the promotional image. It looks very clean, very slick, but who knows, this may only be a part of that interior, and it could lead off into a completely different section, which is very, very exciting. They have a lot of stuff they could do here, and I'm praying that they do it well. Okay then, moving on from Black Mirror Labyrinth, then we also will most likely expect to have a few events next year. Obviously recently Thorpe Park and quite a few of the other Merlin attractions are actually starting to roll out these events. Obviously specifically this year, Thorpe Park managed to obviously roll out Fright Nights. Obviously that's their flagship scarer and Halloween event. Obviously as well as that, we also got Oktoberfest at both Alton Towers and Thorpe Park, and obviously Blackpool Pleasure Beach as well. Obviously this was a massive celebration of the kind of German culture, and something that we haven't really seen properly done in the UK before. Unfortunately I didn't get the experience and the opportunity to go and kind of try it out for myself, However, from everything I've heard from multiple people who have been and certain videos I've watched, it does look like a very, very kind of immersive experience for Thorpe Park to create, and it did look like it went down very, very well. Obviously, it definitely kind of went hand in hand with Fright Nights too. Obviously, the kind of what would you call it, venue they kind of set up in the middle of the park in the dockyard. They kind of just had to tweak some bits to that, obviously, and that became the festival arena during Fright Nights, so they definitely lended hand in hand, and I can definitely obviously see Fright Nights coming back next year, as well as Oktoberfest, just because of how well it went down. However, obviously these weren't the only two events that were planned for the 2020 season. Obviously at the beginning of the year, just before all this kind of corona stuff started to properly kick off, Thorpe Park had announced they were planning on a couple of other events at the beginning. They had the Hyper Spring event, which is obviously you kind of celebrated the launch of the Black Mirror Labyrinth. I don't know why I said the Black Mirror Labyrinth, I sound like a GP now. They obviously wanted to maybe have that to celebrate that. Obviously a couple of stuff they were actually kind of describing within that event was that they were going to have certain kind of, occurrences around the park to coincide with that kind of futuristic theme for that season, and one of those things were actually ride repeats. It kind of detailed that maybe, I don't know, every couple of times within a ride cycle, it will just send the ride back round again straight away and kind of have that element to it, which could be very, very fun, and it could be very, very funny, and it could be something that we've never really seen before. Like I said, Thorpe Park really trying to strive to try and do something different with this event. Obviously, they would have had many different kind of offerings around the park, merchandise wise. They probably would have also kind of put some, banners up just like they did with Oktoberfest, and it sounds really, really cool. But obviously, maybe we'll get that next year, and I'm hoping and praying that we do, plainly because obviously if Black Mirror has been shifted to next year, they may also shift this event as well. Another one of these events that they may well shift over to next year is also Supercharged Summer. This looked like a very, very kind of happy, upbeat event. Obviously, we did return to the park during summer of this year. However, looking at the nature of what that event would have entailed, it's probably for the best that it didn't operate within a pandemic, if I'm being honest. Obviously, much like Oktoberfest, this would have obviously, provided a lot of food offerings. There was also some challenges that sounded like they were going to be within this event as well. It just sounds like a very upbeat, kind of happy atmosphere event, very much akin to something like Oktoberfest. However, a lot of people have been saying, oh, this was kind of what Oktoberfest turned into. However, according to an interview Jack Silverstone actually conducted with a member of the marketing team, obviously this was in production quite early on, and when we got the initial announcement actually for most of these events, there was a little gap in there saying more events will be announced soon, and I'm assuming Oktoberfest would have been one of them. However, I'm happy to have two happy summer events. It doesn't really bother me. Obviously, Oktoberfest is meant to kind of mark the transition from summer to autumn, so it'd be nice to have a proper upbeat summer event, as well as obviously having kind of like a transition into Fright Nights just before obviously it starts getting spooky around the park. Okay then, moving on to a little bit more of a big news announcement. Well, not a really news announcement, but a big new thing that will be coming next year is obviously something to do with Fright Nights. Now obviously every year, if you don't already know, Fright Nights is kind of an event that Thorpe Park puts on to celebrate the Halloween season. Obviously, all of the parks respectively do their own ones. Obviously, Alton Towers does Scarefest, Thorpe Park does Fright Nights, and so on and so forth. However, obviously there is a special occasion next Fright Nights, and that is the fact that it will be Thorpe Park's 20th anniversary for Fright Nights. Obviously, it's been going on for quite a while now, but 20th anniversary is quite a big landmark, and it's got quite a few people talking on what could potentially be coming. Now, obviously, there is a lot of speculation, and I will be going a little bit more in depth with the speculation in a separate video, obviously maybe a little bit closer to the time. However, I do want to kind of share my initial thoughts and what I potentially think could be coming while we're sitting and doing this video here. Now, obviously, with it being the 20th anniversary, you would think that maybe they would bring back some of the iconic mazes that obviously were featured within maybe the last decade of Fright Nights. One, and I'm praying that this is the case, and one maze I'm pretty sure most of the community would want back is the Big Top. Obviously, with Do or Die probably just been stumped out now. Obviously, with Living Nightmare being casted off, I don't really think that they could do or Die without having Living Nightmare. They kind of went as like a trio or a duo. Obviously, with that kind of space kind of free now, if they kind of maybe shift the Lycanthorpe area maybe somewhere else, They could easily bring the Big Top back, or if they really want to keep Thorpe where it is, they could obviously move Big Top back to the beach, which is obviously where it originally, you know, was located back in 2016, which could be very, very cool. As well as that, I can see maybe something to do with the kind of 20th anniversary being woven into it, maybe a special thing for the festival arena. I know Jack Silkstone suggested a big kind of 20th anniversary show that they put on in the festival arena, which I definitely think could be very, very cool. As well as that, I can definitely see the Crows returning as a roaming team, maybe even having their own maze. I know a lot of people are talking about that. That would be very cool. Obviously, I would assume that things like Creek Freak will be back. Obviously, I could imagine Creek Freak was supposed to come back this year, obviously, but you know, due to circumstances, they obviously couldn't. So I can definitely see Creek Freak returning, Platform potentially returning, maybe for its final year. It'd be a nice way to kind of send it off on the 20th anniversary of Fright Nights. Maybe that, or they could just completely retheme it to something new. I know Jack still said potentially they could retheme it to a Crow's Maze, which could be very cool. I would like to maybe see some of the Lionsgate stuff return, but obviously that's a little bit of a dodgy zone, plainly because obviously with a lot of the marketing rights and the whole, like, you know, IP stuff, it might be a little bit difficult to do. Obviously Saw Alive would be nice as well. Again, IP, marketing stuff, you know, Saw Alive boat, we don't know why it even kind of stopped, you know, coming out in the first place, because obviously that had quite a long run and then it kind of cut it short within 2019, but that would be very nice to see back. However, one thing I do think we definitely could see returning, obviously, is potentially Studio 13. Obviously we know that this year at Fright Nights they obviously kind of added a little bit more to the Screenplex cinema, kind of weaving the Studio 13 lore into that attraction and making it a part of it, and that made me enjoy Screenplex cinema a lot more, just because it had that interactivity with it. So if they're not that hell-bent on keeping Jungle Escape, they could easily rip everything out and just deck it out as a brand new Fright Night spot, because obviously now that we've lost the Living Nightmare space, you know, we need a new indoor spot, and that could easily be the place we have that. And it would be nice to see Studio 13 once again returning to the park. Another thing I would absolutely love to see at Fright Nights next year, or at least something that I would like to see expanded upon, is the Swarm Invasion. Maybe, potentially, fingers crossed, even having its own maze. We know there is a scare maze spot on the kind of service road next to Swarm. Obviously, for those of you that were around back in 2017, obviously that was when they had Sanctum. They had Sanctum in that spot before. Obviously in 2018 it got switched over to obviously where the Big Top was and turned into Do or Die. So they could easily have a Swarm maze there, which could be very, very cool. Obviously, seeing what they've done with the Swarm Invasion and how cool that is, how expansive it was to the story of the Swarm, I would love to see them carry that over in a potential maze, maybe having it as like a military base or something like that. I just think it could be a really cool maze, not necessarily scary, but like I said, give the atmosphere to that part of the park, and I think it could be very cool. As well as that, containment, I can see that coming back maybe with a little bit of a twist on it. Maybe they could switch up and each of the rooms be themed to a certain kind of IP that Thorpe Park has created for Fright Nights over the years. That could be a really clever way of doing containment. But as for that, there's not really a lot we could know about. Obviously, I'm assuming we'll see more shows like Amity returning, and like I said, Thorpe. Like I said, I want something to happen on the beach because I think the beach is a really good spot. Potentially that could be the place where the Big Top goes if Thorpe is still up there. Obviously it's still an iconic spot for the Big Top and still would be an absolutely amazing addition to that year's Fright Nights lineup.